So hi friends, welcome to the Vishebility Talk, where we explore careers, showcase businesses, and celebrate the Black women who are pushing through in these spheres. My name is Mary Moshakwe-Adeyemi, and I am the founder of Vishebility and your host for this conversation. This is season 2, as you know, and we are focusing on intersectional leadership through a Black and female lens by having conversations with women in leadership across a wide range of sectors and spaces. What we want to explore is their journey leadership, the good, the bad, and sometimes ugly, the current and evolving leadership styles that they've embodied, and also the leadership ethos, as well as some advice that they would have on how other women can embrace and execute their own leadership journey. So today is going to be great. I already know that. It's going to be awesome. So I'm having a conversation with Oli Ikechi. If you've been watching the show, you would have seen her when we did the board readiness conversation. This was for International Women's Day and Choose to Challenge event that we hosted. This was back in March of 2021, and Oli just dropped so many gems and talked a lot about just her leadership style, and we just knew we had to bring her back specifically to get into more on that on this series. So I'm excited to dig in. So before we do that, let me give you a quick introduction for her and just some of the highlights, a little bit of just tea before we get into all the detail. So from graduating with a first-class degree in information systems from Brunel University, Oli has had an accelerated career path to managing director and partner at Accenture, where she's been building and leading the firm's business restructuring and innovation for capital markets units in the United Kingdom. She definitely has a lot of stories to tell about that, and we can't wait to get into it. She is a business award winner and a vocal advocate for next generation leadership, innovation, diversity, and inclusion, with a particular focus on women in leadership from the Black and ethnic minority communities. Oli is committed to supporting the wider community. She does a lot of work, and we're going to, delve into all of that, and really plays an active role in on the Business and the Community BITC London Advisory Board. And that's an organization that I'm pretty close to. And, their whole ethos is around helping today's businesses really be more responsible in all ramifications. She's the founder and CEO of Fully Bossed, really exciting initiative that she's working on to help professionals advance in their careers. And she has a pipeline of other amazing things that she's doing. So I can't really wait to get in. Oli, welcome to Vishebility.
Great. That was a great introduction.
Awesome.
You've done this before.
I have done this before.
Yes.
Thank you. But no, it's great to see you again. It hasn't felt like months since I last saw you, but it has been like 6 months easily. But, hope you've been doing well, and, family. I remember last time you had a little baby, and baby is grown now.
Yes. By 6 whole months.
Yeah. And yeah, I know there've been lots of really great updates, but let's start from the beginning. Just get into the conversation for those who haven't had the opportunity to meet you before. So as we go sort of back down memory lane, what are some of the childhood stories that really stand out for you, and where you feel like have been quite instructive to how you have executed your life since that point?
You told me about this question, and I actually thought I was going to start by saying something different, but what's now come into my head is something completely different. So I'm just going to share that emotion. But I just remember, I always remember how meticulous I was when I probably would have been 8 years old or something like that, 8 years old. And any pocket money that we were given, was one of 5 children, so we did housework and stuff, and we had to do that in order to get pocket money for the week. So I would always try and save my pocket money. I would save it. I had a ledger, so every time I would get money, I would write it on a piece of paper. Yeah, and I would save it into my little piggy bank, right? But I had a ledger. I kept a ledger like crazy, and I would use it to. I would save it for the year, and I remember using it one year just to buy Christmas presents for my family, for all of my family members. Really basic things. But I think the ethos for me, the learning came from my dad, who said, always make your money work for you, and be wise with money. And that's one of the things that I think sticks out for me. And it certainly stuck out when you were talking about childhood memory, because
Yeah.
when I reminisce with my siblings or with friends or family or whatever, it's some of those funny moments that you think about that help you understand why you are why the way you are.
Yeah.
Very meticulous, would record absolutely everything. So I definitely get some of that from him.
Yeah.
I think the other thing, and what I was going to start with in terms of some childhood memories, was that, yeah, I definitely remember and recall to this day. It's definitely things that ring in my ear without the bell actually ringing, but they're definitely subconscious thoughts that I have. But the message, I think, for me was, work harder than your peers. The world is unfair, can be unfair. So be prepared for that, and be prepared to work harder. Don't wait for your tutor at university, at school, wherever, to tell you what to do, to tell you to do homework. Go and do it. Continue that learning, continue growing for yourself. So those have been really important messages for me. And I think another one which helped more in a creative sense was from actually a tutor in school, who would always tell, and it was my English literature teacher, who would always tell us, continue exploring, continue giving me your thoughts, continue that creative process. If you believe something is the way it is, tell me why. And if you believe it is the way it is because of a certain reason, tell me why. And it just meant that each time you're continuing to build on a message or build on a story until you get to the operative point. And I think that was actually quite useful for me in knowing how to build headlines, in knowing how to deliver a message with the most important thing, right? But sometimes, in order to understand what the most important message is for an audience, you need to actually do a bit of groundwork to understand why that audience is going to care about that particular message. So until I understand why you, Mary, are wired the way you are, and what drives you, and what interests you, and what your passions are, or what your fears are, I won't be able to really then respond to that. And I think that's another thing that sticks with me to this day. My English teacher from however many years ago telling me that, it definitely sticks out.
Yeah. And the story that you mentioned about the sort of, and that's advice that a lot of us have got, that work harder, shall I almost say. We hear the sort of twice as hard concept. And do you feel like that advice was given because of your gender, your race, or is that just advice you just think like any parent would give a child?
It was definitely given because of my ethnicity, because I'm Black. And we grew up in a predominantly white area in Wimbledon. So my parents saw they clearly went through not clearly, but they went through things themselves. Get into the UK from Nigeria, or get into Europe from Nigeria, and also being in a predominantly white area, right? They chose to do that because they believed it was going to give us a good start and give us more opportunities, right? We didn't have the wider conversations, the open table talk conversations. We didn't have that growing up, Mary, right? So back then it was definitely this is just the way it is, right? And if I say my parents, if they experience what they've experienced, they know it's going to hit the kids. So I think it was there a bit that them trying to shield us and protect us, but also toughen us, right, to what is likely going to come. And don't believe it's something that you walk around as a parent and just say to your child. I think it's a very thoughtful thing that it's a thought-provoking conversation that you have, not because you want to. And I know, with my own daughter and my husband's, I remember telling him for the first time that those were some of the learnings that I had as a kid. And I think for him, who is not, my husband is a Caucasian white man. So I think for him, he didn't go through the same upbringing and that I had. But here we have a mixed heritage baby who I need to think about what are the messages that I need to share with her. And we've had that, and we both have different viewpoints from that. Not viewpoints, we're on the same page, but we have different lived experiences, right? So yeah, I think it's definitely, my lived experience is very different to his. So I don't think you automatically go, this is what I'm going to communicate to my child. But I think him having listened to my experience, he completely gets it. And it's important for us that we set up our children to succeed, but to also hopefully have the confidence to love themselves and be proud of who they are.
No, definitely good lessons there. And I guess, as we evolve and we have more, more and more relationships that are, inter-ethnicity or inter-tribal, these are the conversations that just need to happen, because everyone's sort of perspective is evolving, but it is different, just because of just the way life is. And so, you've talked a little bit about like your upbringing, with your siblings and so on. But what, as you were growing up, what were the images you had of your future self growing up? Is that something you ever think about it, or was it just like, okay, let's just get on with life, how it goes?
Yeah, it was definitely a let's just see. It was definitely a well, I think at different stages. So pre-university, it was, I think I want to do something in either, in the sciences or in business. I wasn't going to go down the arts route, probably because I am Nigerian heritage, but I wasn't interested in anything other than business, technology, and not hardcore coding technology. But as you know, I studied information systems. So that's a nice kind of in between. When you think about it's the middle part of the sandwich. If the actual sandwich itself, the bread, was technology and business, what's in the middle.
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted to do something in that kind of area. And to be honest, I then picked my university course based on what my elder brother had studied, and he'd studied computer science in Manchester. And I was quite close-minded then. I really thought the world revolved in London. So I couldn't think of studying anywhere else at all. My brother had gone to Manchester to study information systems, and I didn't know what to study. All of these courses were very new to me. So I just went with computer science, and I knew enough after the first half semester, the first 6 weeks or whatever, to know that this wasn't for me. And luckily, I within time to change. Then I changed to information systems, and then I think doing information systems again, I did not have any appreciation of consultancy. I didn't think I was going to get into consultancy or banking at all. I was still on of in my head, I want to be a businesswoman, whatever that is. My vision was, I remember seeing women like hail taxis, and I thought that was like the golden ticket, just to be able to like go, hey, taxi, like in a nice suit.
Be in a nice suit with the hand out. Looking good.
Yeah. So then I did the internships, and I really got the appreciation of what consultancy is, I also enjoyed being in banking. I did another internship, like a placement where I got a taster of what it would be like working in an investment bank. So this was where I kind of had a taster of 8 different investment banks, and I spent time with 2 of those investment banks. So you would apply, or it was like Women in the City, I think it was called, and you would apply to this thing to, as I say, spend some time with these banks, and then be placed with 2 of the 8 investment banks. And I think that experience, plus the experience at Lloyd's Banking Group, gave me a great appreciation for, well, I wouldn't say great appreciation, but an appreciation for the dynamics, the fast pace, the anything can change, in terms of volatility, perception, in terms of how the markets move, and the quickness of how things can change.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed that because I'm a person who gets bored quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that early on. I realized that I needed variation.
Mm-hmm.
So I was then beginning to like the industry of banking and finance. And then when I thought about, okay, well, naturally, I would just then go and apply to a bank. I've done some internships. I like it. I want to be in business. Okay, I can see that adding up. Then when I came across the consultancy firms, I was like, bingo. Are you telling me I can work across many different banks, as in, not get bored with one, and work with many different banks on many different projects, with many different, backgrounds and perspectives and different views, etc. Okay, that's me.
Right.
So that experience said to me, I don't want to apply directly to one bank. I want to work for a consultancy firm and then work across the banking sector. And that's exactly what I did. And that's it.
Yeah.
I drew an Accenture. I ticked the box to say, hey, I would like to, when you join the graduate scheme, there's no guarantee that you're going to work in the area that you've chosen. But luckily, I was able to. So yeah, that's where it all began.
Yeah. I really like how you walked us through that thought process, because it's not immediately apparent. And I think it would be quite helpful actually for those who then watch this, just that idea of, working for one organization or working for an organization that works with a ton of like how that could be quite different, and how, that could be attractive in different ways, different people. No, I actually really see that. And as someone who's had my career like on the other side, where I've worked for organizations, I can see like, yeah, where the appeal is in doing it kind of differently. Okay, I think I got a little bit of insight in there myself, just as I was listening to you. So I think that was really, really good. And so now it's been a really long journey, since starting at Accenture to
now.
It's been years, and it seems like a really good run. And so, when I speak to people like you, that I always feel like there are always these very specific, pivotal moments in their journey that, that led them to the heights that they're able to reach, especially within an organization. And for you, as we talked about, being a woman, being a Black woman, that always has a lot of different connotations, especially in the world that we live in today. So can you isolate sort of 1 or 2 of those moments that you think, okay, this was a real defining moment for me in my journey here? And
yes.
maybe this is what made me get to partner. Like you can point that.
Okay, so aha moments, yes, I like to call them aha moments, absolutely. One of my earliest memories, and I think when I think about this, I think that my career could have absolutely turned out very differently. And that early moment was at the very beginning. I was on a project for probably 2 years, which is a very long time. And it was much more of a technology delivery type project. And it was great to have a lot of people on the project and to have, a lot of process to follow and a lot of people to give you that comfort and to give you that sense of you're doing the right thing. I traveled, I was working in India, working in the UK, seeing lots of different variations, working in different teams. It was great. But when it was only until I left that project and I went on to another project, which was smaller, and I had to do everything, that I realized that I'm learning way more. And that for me was fantastic. And had I continued, I think, in the environment of continuing to work in this kind of big team, I don't think I would have grown as much. Absolutely not. And I think a notable period in my career was making, when I was promoted after 2 years, I remember my kind of career counselor at the time, advisor, let's say, saying to me, well, now we're going to go for the next promotion. And back then it was kind of, you go for a promotion after a certain number of years, right? And you had to meet those number of years. And I was like, well, why would we start thinking about it now? I've only just been promoted. It clicked in me. If you're able to do it, if you are demonstrating that you can be at the next level, then why wouldn't you go for the next level? So it was a mindset shift in me when he said that. And that person wouldn't say things lightly. So when he said that, it was a mindset shift in terms of, if you want it, if you work hard for it, if you can demonstrate that you have the capabilities for it, you can get it. And the other thing for me was, as I say, being able to work in a much, and I'm not saying that if you're always on small teams, it's going to be great, but for me, I had more responsibility. I was doing the end-to-end. I was, at this point, exposed to having to price my deals, having to, review contracts, having to lead teams, learning how to, I guess at that point I was really managing teams and learning how the difference between management and leadership. So it was all a learning experience, learning how to communicate more, better and more effectively. So that was definitely a learning point. And I think the fact that my manager at the time actually took a leave of absence gave me even more than cover and exposure, because I then inherited ultimately the work, the project, the team, the relationships with our clients, etc. And then I had the ability for myself to make my own decisions. Yes, there was somebody I could go to help me when I needed, but I kind of like the businesswoman in me was, what should I do? I have to make a decision. I have to think about it. And sometimes you just go with your gut instinct in terms of what makes good, practical, logical sense, right? It's like that moment where you realize that your parents are not perfect. It's like in business, your line managers are not perfect. They just have experience, or they have gut and intuition based on experiences, etc., and based on, of course, skills and capabilities. But I think the more experiences, the more moments you get where you are putting yourself out of your comfort zone, actually increase your comfort with something, right? The more I do something that I'm unfamiliar with, I'm then more familiar with it. So I think that notion of me kind of on my own for a period of time on projects was actually great. It really gave me the springboard that I needed. And I was, thinking about new business ideas and thinking about how to, expand what I was doing with one project to another project, thinking about how to kind of build internal capabilities so that we could store a lot of the knowledge. I was like, okay, we're working on these projects, but this is great information that we've just gathered. This is great knowledge that we're building for ourselves. Let's, write it down and at least, use it somehow. And that the somehow was, I can then share, obviously unsensitive information with other maybe clients or even people in our teams, in terms of, hey, this is what's happening across the market. And then you're kind of, what you're doing in that moment is you're building thought leadership, right? You're building a point of view. So I was turning away from, not turning away, I was moving away from being just a consultant to being a consultant with a point of view.
Right.
And when you're a consultant with a point of view, you're more, I mean, you work at Goldman Sachs, right? So it's nice when you are working with people maybe outside of your organization who can tell you what's happening across the industry that you operate in and have a point of view. And that's what I was building. And I realized that the more I had a point of view and the more I tried to put my point of view out there, even if it was wrong or right, but the more I shared something, the more I tried, the more I felt people would listen.
Right.
And then you entertain dialogue and discussion, and that dialogue and discussion only enriches your point of view. So then you keep going, and then you get more confidence, etc., etc. That was pivotal for me. That was, 2 years in, and it was pivotal. And then, or 2.5 years in, and it was pretty pivotal moment. And that is my I think one of the big turning points then when I made manager. And this was at 4 years in. I was mid-level management, and the responsibility that I had just before making it, I continue to have that, and I continue to, try kind of develop those points of views, but also I think I learned what works at the firm. I think I learned what it would take to be successful. And I think that's the thing, understanding what it is you need to succeed and working along those lines. But also there's what you need to be successful or to succeed here, and also what you define as success and what you need to be successful in your own path or in your own journey. So those were those two things. But I think I was more at that point about what I need to succeed here, right? And for me, success at that point in my career was getting to the next position and having that just greater autonomy, confidence in my ability to lead, my ability to think about things, and put those things out to the market, communicate them in a certain way. I think the other pivotal moment in my career, when I fast forward, was definitely just before making partner. Just before making partner, and all of the things that you heard me talk about in terms of communication, learning how to deliver a set of messages, learning how to be more than just a person who is helping you deliver a project, but a person who is advising you, a person who is truly consulting you, and a person who is offering a point of view, were really, over the course of the next few years, that took me to entering into the applications for partner. They definitely grew a lot. And I think just before making partner, that kind of year leading up to it was definitely, or 2 years leading up to it, was definitely monumental in terms of just the confidence that I remembered feeling when I would walk into a room and they would be there to listen to me speak.
Yeah.
And I remember Brexit was a period where I would, go to my calendar on Monday or Tuesday or any day of the week, and I had so many delivery projects, meetings for, getting the job done. But I also had so many, I just remember on a daily basis, there was some form of communication from someone, whether in the firm, hey, do you know this? Or can you connect me with someone on this? Or can you come and speak to my client on this? Or can you come and do a training session on this? You just launched the day. Can you replicate that? Can you this country and talk about this? And it's linked to this other thing, so can you talk about this? There was like something on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And I realized that this was the epitome of having a point of view. We had there was an amazing team of people who really made everything happen. Very, very blessed for that. They're a great team of people. And there were people we had really building this capability, this massive point of view, which was, more than just this is what we think is happening in the industry, but it was the ability for people to learn, right? There was a training academy. It was the ability for people to, and also for us to deliver real value to our clients. So it was us coming up with actual tools and actual products that we could go to projects with and go, hey, this is something that we can help to accelerate, right? So it was us actually building like real tangible products, tools, assets that we could take on day one and use on certain projects. And that took a good team of people. There were 30 people just working on this particular capability. And I think that for me was a really big moment in my career, where we were the go-to team, that I was leading for this, which all came under our restructure and banner. But of course, the focus at the time was Brexit. And I do remember a number of, I was the person that you would speak to if you wanted to talk to a client on Brexit in financial services. And I remember a couple of occasions where colleagues had said, more senior colleagues than me at the time had said, well, we've got to bring our A game for this one. And gave the impression of we cannot fail, right? One is important. They're all important ones, but this is an important meeting, etc. And when you're told that, and you are the only person who, like, genuinely, it never fazed me to walk into a room and be the only Black female.
Yeah.
But when you are then reminded that this is a really important session, and I think, I also was told at one point I wasn't grey-haired enough, right?
Oh,
so
okay.
when you are, but when you are reminded that it's a big deal, of course it's more pressure.
Yeah.
Right. But I remember going back to the lesson I had, earlier on in my career around presenting and communication. And I never liked to present or to talk or to communicate at the beginning of my career. And you couldn't stop me talking now, right? I had to learn how to do that. So we separate question, but I went back to the learnings in my head and I said, well, listen, as long as I know my content, as long as I'm familiar with my content, and sometimes familiarity is not, for me, knowing absolutely every single detail. Of course, I'm going to know detail, but also I need to be comfortable not knowing detail.
Right.
Because you can't script it so much. You can script it to a point where I know what I'm going to say. I have an idea of the flow. I have an idea of the key messages. But hey, I've had it before, because remember, I was having so many requests to meet so many different people on a daily basis. So not every meeting is the same. You learn from every meeting. And I remember, having meetings where everything changed the minute you walked in the room and sat down, because, hey, they wanted to talk about something else and you've got to be ready. So I realized that you can't script it so much, but to feel confident that I can walk in and speak to a group of senior, MDs in the business for a large bank, I had to feel confident with the topic. So as long as I prepare well for the topic, and that involves, my teams helping us prepare, and also as long as we know that we've got valuable things to say. I think the acid test was, what is it we can tell the client that they cannot read in the news, and they cannot read in the magazine, in the newspapers, etc. And that is going to be valuable. And that was what we focused on. So we did our research. We obviously were working on a number of projects. We built our own analytics, formed our own points of view, right? And I think that's what a point of view is. It's taken lots of different sources of information and data, actually, and enriching that data to be information, to be something informative for that particular audience. And quite frankly, when we were building that part, and Brexit, understanding how a bank can move or an organization can move, but it was certainly the biggest kind of task that we had during my kind of 10-year plus reign on restructuring at Accenture. And all the different things that we were doing, and we had 30 people in the team who were working on this side of desk. All the different things we were doing, we were marketing, running training, actually building a product and a service that we can actually deliver value for our clients. We were doing research, right? The research and the development. We got funding to actually take some of our research and our points of views and turn them into actual tools that we could build and, as I say, take to market. And those tools were technology-based tools. So again, you have to build them, develop them, test them, etc. And then, of course, leading a team. We also had a number of events that we were running, thought leadership events, round tables, etc. Debates, we ran debates, so many different things. And when I think of all of those different things, and of course, then we're also running the financials and making sure that everything makes business sense. And when I think about all those different a part of the business, so that was also monumental in terms of how I started to think about what is achievable. If we think there's a gap in the market and we need to build a tool, let's go build a tool, and then let's figure out how we can finance it. So there was an element of risk taking. There's an element of following your gut. Element of, hey, I'm here, but I'm not going to go to you with the idea, Mr. Senior Person or Mrs. Senior Person, yet. So I'm going to talk to the senior person when I can demonstrate that there is something here that we should explore further. And it's knowing when to actually go and have that conversation and when not to. It's knowing when to pause and when to go. It's knowing when to be worried but actually not show your worry, right, to your teams. And it's knowing how to manage uncertainty, to deal with not knowing or deal with something not going the right way. All of those things, I mean, we dealt with so many scenarios, and I think they were real. I haven't mentioned is my journey as a leader, and that has its own path, its own separate.
We're actually going to get into that now, and I think just to kind of recap on the answer you just gave, which had a lot in there.
Sorry.
But no, I mean, and I'm saying that in a good way. Like, it had a lot in there that you almost need to listen to all over again and like take the notes down. And so I actually started taking notes. At some point I was like, there's a lot here that I need to pick out, because you talked about really not just doing work, but really forming that point of view, like having your own point of view, which is actually your own contribution, till I say, to the discourse, which is a different mindset and a step change from what is typical, and then really now building that capability within your team to deliver a value. So having this kind of key focus on your value proposition and how you can serve internally and also your clients externally. But you also talked a lot about visibility. You didn't exactly use those words, but just really making sure that as you're working on things, you were telling people why it made sense. and you were going into rooms and you were participating in discussions and training and so on and so forth. And that's, you know, you eventually said marketing, but that's effectively what you were doing, is kind of, you know, selling the dream, as the case may be. And then we spend a bit of time talking about confidence, and how you, even when you're confident in what you're doing, you know, there are moments where people might say things that might trigger, or that might make you feel like, am I ready? Like, you know, things like you're not gray haired enough. And we talk a lot about race and gender. We never really talk about age, and how there could be like effectively just ageism or whatever, like that idea that because someone has been there for 50 years, that, you know, they have suddenly more to contribute than what I might have to contribute. And I think that's something that doesn't come up as often. And then some of the practices that the things that you lean into when something like that might challenge your confidence. So I wanted to really just summarize and recap, because I just feel like it was a lot in there. It was almost like
that was a great attempt. Yeah, that was great.
in there. And so no, I was writing notes like, okay, yeah, there's a lot. And then even just, you know, just bits about like critical thinking, and being able to take lots of data, bring it all together, form a point of view, and then, you know, leverage that point of view to help other people create value. I think such important lessons. And then now we definitely want to go into like the leadership piece, and you know, I think what you've explained really demonstrates your passion and drive for thought leadership. But with that also means, like you talked about 30 people working, you know, within the business that you were running. And so I guess the question for me then for you is, what does good leadership look like for you? And in particular, as someone who's young, Black, female, you know, sort of in this, I don't know, new generation or sort of millennial type leadership, like what, you know, how has that shaped your leadership ethos and things that inform you as a leader?
Oh, yes. I think it's informed my leadership style immensely, but I also think what has informed my leadership style is getting some clear feedback, and some really valuable feedback. And I would say I would talk, if I can, about how I started as a leader. And I think definitely, you know, all of us have an element of command and control at some point in our career, and I definitely had that at the beginning.
Yeah.
Very focused with my teams around, okay, let's make sure the task is done, make sure the task is done well, and make sure everyone is happy, particularly the clients. And that doesn't always translate to being a great leader, right? So I didn't even know what the difference between management and leadership was when I was starting out. But I think actually having conversations with people in my team at that point when I was more managing helped me. So that type of feedback in terms of, you know, it would be more helpful if you would listen a little bit more to me, or give me more time in terms of, I need to complete this task or whatever that thing is. And I think the other piece of good feedback, and you know, that was quite earlier on in my career. And I think the other thing that was quite valuable for me, again, pre MD, and at this point I was definitely less command and control, but the aspect of leadership, I wasn't embodying what I really am passionate about now, because I didn't know much about it. Certainly being the ability to be vulnerable.
Right.
You know, I remember being told at one point that, oh, Ollie, you know more about us than we do about you.
Right.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that for me. You know? Good. What's the issue? You know, and I think sometimes also, yes, I made a decision to, you know, I wanted to keep on going in my career. I wanted to get to the next level. I wanted to have more accountability, more responsibility, etc. Conscious decision, very happy with it. But equally, it's not everyone's decision. And it can feel, especially also having been told, got to work hard, got to, you know, etc., etc., etc. Maybe I think I had a barrier up in the sense of this is a goal, I'm chasing this goal, I'm going to work towards that goal, and there wasn't really a lot of room for failure, and there wasn't a lot of room for showing that failure, whereas now I see the real value in doing that. And I think because of that, there was I definitely had maybe a disconnect to people who couldn't really connect with me at that point, where I wasn't always so vulnerable and always so open with how I may be feeling, or how I got to where I got to, all the things and the fears and the challenges that I went through, because they saw where I was as almost unattainable, right? But actually it's all very attainable. It really is. But yeah, I think when I realized the value of being open, of being more vulnerable, of showing that emotional side, was actually two things happened, but at one particular point in my career. And one was a personal thing, and it was going through a breakup, which, if I'm honest, it was always on the cards. I wasn't really that into it. But for me, it was the fact that it was a failed relationship. Okay, I need to evaluate this failed relationship. Why did I stay for as long as
for longer than you probably thought you should have?
Should have. When I wasn't, I wasn't emotionally available. I wasn't connected. And it made me go, hey, the next relationship I have, and bear in mind, I feel like this is now like a dating interview, but bear in mind that I had never been I was always somebody who, similar in my career, kind of knew what I wanted, and if I didn't see it, move on. So I never was that person to have many relationships after the other, right? I'm okay being single. But in this particular point, I said, okay, I want to evaluate why this relationship didn't work, and why I also contributed to that, clearly. So it made me go, hey, for the next one, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I want, and this is what I will get, hopefully, if I believe I can contribute the same thing, and also be halfway. So it made me really understand the benefit of being vulnerable and being open and being willing to make mistakes and be willing to get hurt because maybe you're going to be embarrassed, or maybe whatever the thing is. But it made me really dig deep on forming bonds and forming emotional connections with people. And those emotional connections come in all shapes and forms. It comes through your immediate family, who you have a bond with because they know you inside out, for better, for worse. It comes with the teacher, potentially, who is coaching you outside of school hours, because they see something in you that they saw in their child. It comes from a team of people who you want to lead, and those people have got loads of things going on in their own lives, but they feel connected to you. They feel like you are a voice that they want to listen to, that inspires them. So that there's so many aspects of our lives require emotional connections, and so does a relationship, right? And I couldn't be happier. I've got the love of my life now. So
it worked out.
Yeah, but also I think at that same time where I had the breakup, and I was evaluating relationships in general, but across all areas of my life, including work, in combination with that, I had the feedback, the normal annual feedback, which was all well and great. You're on the right track for partner, and obviously that then happened a couple of years later. But it was more, it was just great feedback that I got at the time that I probably needed to hear, because I didn't recognize it fully for myself. And it was nothing, you know, nothing outrageous, but it was another opportunity for me to look at myself, and myself as a leader, and myself as a, you know, this career professional, and go, okay, this is something else that I can work on. And I've got to listen to this because more than one person has said it. So that was for me monumental in the leadership journey, because I then had a real appreciation into emotions. And if you ever hear me talk about leadership, I'm always talking about some form of emotion.
Yeah.
Because in order to lead, you need to be connected, right? And for me, the emotion, I always talk about, it's energy in motion. If I can cause you to feel something, if I can cause you to, you don't have to like me, but if I can cause you to be inspired, if I can cause you to hope, if I can cause you to fear, to have fear, if I can cause you to have any form of emotion, and you do some acts on the back of that, i.e. you sign up to a course, you make that application, you know, you stop doing the thing that you know you shouldn't be doing, whatever that thing is, that's even better. That's the emotion really kicking in. And that is for me a real remark of a great leader. And I just got obsessed with this topic of impactful leadership, I call it. And the more I read and spoke to people, and just again started building my own opinion, right, gathering all of these data sources, forming my own opinion, putting my own opinion of what great impactful leaders are, the more I wanted to do more on this topic. And it just became for me a part of, you know, I'm not pretending to be a great leader in any aspect or in every aspect, but it definitely made me think and made me be more conscious of my leadership style, in a not at all a box ticking way, in a real emotive and kind of DNA way. Like it's ingrained in my DNA, like how I do things. Like if I have a team now, the first thing I take pleasure in doing is just understanding who my team are, getting to know them, their names, their surnames, you know, the names of their partners, any kids that they may have, what they're doing on the weekend, actually listening. What are they doing on the weekend? Actually listening. You come back on Monday, listen, like, okay, you said that you're doing X on the weekend. How did it go? So actually really to get to know my team, and then for the team to get to know each other, right? And for them to know each other's skills and what they like and what they don't like, because, you know, that's really important. We're at work for a long portion of the week, away from our families and loved ones. If, you know, if Jenny would rather be doing everything around PowerPoint presentations, whereas Sandeep would rather be doing everything around the finances or whatever it is, then go for it, you know. And if those are the skills that we need in the team, then allow those people to fulfill what it is that they're looking for. So understanding the skills that you have in a team is super important, and understanding the desires, the hopes, the dreams, the aspirations people want is also important when you're building a team. And that's the first thing I do when I start a new project, a new team. And I think the other thing for me was the openness. I became more open, more vulnerable, more empathetic as a result. A great listener. I love hearing stories, but then I share my stories as well. And sometimes, you know, I will share as well, because I believe somebody needs to hear the story. Somebody wants to hear the story. Somebody wants that story of hope. They want that story of inspiration. They want to know it's possible. You've gone through the same, you know, beep I've gone through, or the same, you know, the same challenges I've gone through. or similar challenges. Let me resonate with you. And I think the other thing for me was diversity and inclusion. Never have I ever been so passionate about a topic that I was never passionate about before. Not like I didn't like the topic. I just didn't really think about it, right? The girl who grew up in Wimbledon, who was the only Black person, was always told, you're the only Black person. So be prepared and just work harder. Okay, got it. So I didn't go to the workplace going, I've only ever been around Black people. I I got to the workplace, I cracked on with the task, the job, and there I was. So I never felt the value, right? If you go back to value add, go back to doing things to create value for others, I never felt the value going to a committee meeting or an organization event or whatever on just, females or just ethnic minorities or just Black, until I got to a point in my career where I realized it was not about me. It was about, and I went to one of my first actually African Caribbean events at Accenture. And I heard stories and everyone was sharing stories, and what I was hearing from people who were either similar career track or age to me or more junior was stories that I could resonate with in my younger years as a teenager. But I was hearing these stories from women in the workplace, like, okay, no, this is not okay. You still feel like this?
Yeah.
Okay, I need to do something next. You can be that person that you want to be. Of course you can. Like, has no one told you that? Okay, I'm going to tell you that.
Right.
And it gave me emotion, right? What did it do? It gave me energy, emotion. What did I do after listening to a day of all of these stories? I went home, well, spoke on the phone with two of my brothers, younger than me. So I've got an older brother and an older sister, two younger brothers. I spoke to my two younger brothers and I said, guys, do you feel, you're grown men now, do you feel, is it clear to you that you're a Black man when you walk into a room of only white people? And they said, yes, it is. Hell yes. They said.
So that's interesting. By asking that question though, are you saying you never felt that up to that point?
Of course, at some point, of course, you get in it, of course, right? But on a daily, regular basis, no. Sometimes I remember just, kind of having to literally just remind myself, damn, yeah, I am the only female in this room. I'm the only ethnic minority. Damn, I'm the only Black person in this room, right? And financial services, Accenture UK, I was the only Black MD when I got promoted in my division in the UK, right? There were more of us in the UK, but in my division, financial services, I was the only Black person, even when I made it. So, of course, sometimes you recognize, but it doesn't pull me back in the sense of I'm gonna believe I can be the best version of myself, even because I'm I'm the only one. It probably does the opposite. It spurs me on. And I realized that was a different way in terms of how I was thinking. It was different to how other people in this group were thinking. And then I realized it was different to how my brothers were thinking. And hold on, we grew up in the same household, right? And I was trying to test in my head. I grew up being told X, Y, Z. I got to the workplace and, I came to the workplace and I became comfortable in that environment when I, kind of cracked on with things. And of course, there were occasions I can think of which were, related to institutional racism or whatever. Of course, there were going to be those microaggressions all the time, but nothing enough to make me, have any anxiety or worry or fear about my ability to be successful.
Right.
My ability to be successful in my head was always down to me. And I was now understanding that this is a very, very different experience, even though we have
a lot of people,
Exactly, which is why, you know, BAME, we're not all the same. Black people, we're not all the same. We all have different experiences, different, just like any other group of, you know, human being. So yeah, that was a real opening moment for me. And I think combined with now this desire, this hunger, this need, this almost request, this almost mission to help people believe that they can be successful no matter who they are, particularly for the Black community. That was also another reason that made me become and share my story more and more. And I think in doing that, you become more attainable. Everything becomes more attainable. People can resonate easier as well, and it just everything connects in on there. So those were we've talked a lot about it, but like those were, I'd say, the driving forces to me getting to this point in my leadership journey where I only want to lead if I'm being an impactful leader. I only want to do it if it gives me the ability to be impactful. So impactful leadership and true leadership is, it doesn't matter which level I am, right? I don't walk into a room and say, hey, I'm the managing director. I just say, hey, I'm Mario Kechi and I do X, Y, Z, because everything else then speaks for itself. You can lead at any level, at any age, you know, whoever you are. Leadership is not about your role, your title, your hierarchy. It's about what you are doing. It's about your ability to be impactful. And if you look at Greta Thunberg, I always talk about her as an example with climate change or Black Lives Matter, right? Those are people, exactly. And those are initiatives and you know, points of views that have been developed by people who do not look like the normal type of corporate leader. So it is all so attainable. And for me, as you say, I love to talk about next generation leadership. And in summary, it's impactful leadership. Impactful because I connect with you. I'm able to be empathetic, vulnerable, but also, you know, with sincerity. I think that's really important. So it's not about switching it on, you know, during the workday and then switching it off at the end. Yeah. Right. And I think also for me, it's the ability to take some risks, to be entrepreneurial, to not be linear, to not think that you need to follow all the rules all the time. Of course, I'm not advocating for people to break every single rule, but sometimes it's nice to, you know, have some variation and figure out the way yourself. Just like a new mother, you know, you're going to get all the tips and advice, but you know, trust in your gut instinct. Yeah, to know what your child needs, I guess. Yeah, is great. And kind of like, I have two hopefully quick questions on, you know, one, as you were advancing, did you feel like the perception of your own ambition was received differently from other people? So obviously you have these, like, you're clearly very ambitious from the get-go. There are things that you want to do, but when you got to work, did you feel like people thought, why is she, like, you know, so ambitious, or, you know, they couldn't wrap their heads around that? So I think there's one, and the next question I do want to get into is your advice for how, and I know you shared a lot, but your advice for how other women can really embrace, like, their own leadership and feel more confident. Okay, so can you just repeat that? I'll go one by one. So, yeah, so the first question was, the first question is, how do you feel your perception of your own ambition has been received differently in the workplace, either because of your gender, your race, or other reasons? Because we tend to hear this comment that, like, people assume Black women don't want to be leaders. Which, being a Black woman myself, I'm like, I think that's so far from the truth. It's actually quite crazy how far from the truth that is, but that's something that we hear often. So what was your experience with that,
you know, as you were going sort of up the chain?
So the perception of how did I feel that my kind of growth, my leadership journey was being perceived
Yeah.
in the firm.
Yeah. And were there people that just assume that you may not want to lead the team, or you may not want to be MD or partner? They just kind of capped you because they just
That's
thought,
really interesting, because I've not actually heard that.
right.
In terms of Black females don't want to be leaders. So that's really interesting. I'd love to dig into that a bit more. Probably the perception of me. I mean, I think there was definitely a perception of me that I was quite hard, so hard-faced, like as in, maybe that's the wrong term. So definitely smiley. So I don't mean that, but I mean strong-minded, strong-willed. You know, I want a certain level in terms of my deliveries, and also, as I say, I think earlier on, it probably made it then harder for some people to resonate with me, people who had never worked with me, because if you work with me, you'll know that I love to look after my teams. I love working with my teams. I love interacting, speaking with people, etc. So those people are still there to this day. I am still in contact with them, whether they're in the firm or not. And I think the people who were watching around the, you know, watching me progress through the firm, probably thought, well, she's focused a lot on her career to do that, etc. So I think probably that's how it was perceived at the time. But I think those same people have also seen a change in me in terms of, you know, me talking all the time to people, never stopping talking about different things.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of, you know, my leadership journey has played out a bit. If that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I guess the answer to the question basically is you haven't really experienced that, because I think because even in my journey, just whenever if I asked questions about like the next phase or the next step, there was always sort of this sense of like, oh, you're ambitious, like, you know. Yeah, almost as a surprise, like that I would want it, you know.
Got you.
Kind of like, why would you think I wouldn't want it?
Right, absolutely. I think with yeah, I mean, that firstly, that's bloody annoying, firstly, quite frankly, just to hear, and then equally to be on the other side of it in terms of hearing someone say that. That's quite assuming, right? And it's yeah, it could be quite a number of things come to mind. I definitely think there have been probably mixed thoughts, right, in terms of yeah, very ambitious, very focused, and I do think, you know, intersectionality on being a female, being a young female, if you look at the context in terms of the industry we operate in, and being a Black female, play a factor. But then I think, and I think, of course, when you talk about it like that, we don't tend to see us, right, in those positions, in many of those positions. So it will make someone go, oh yeah, you are ambitious, aren't you? You are quite driven. Well, yeah, I'm just driven, ambitious, like most people, but maybe I'm, you know, maybe I'm quite clear on the path, and maybe I, you know, been given a bit of luck as well along the way, whatever it is. But I think I just got used to being seen as the person who, yes, was quite driven in her career, and that was really based on me as Ollie Akechi. Yes, I'm all those other things, but I don't recall a time where it was clear to me that somebody had perceived my kind of my growth, my journey, as you know, shocking for me to be kind of pushing for something because I am a Black female, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I can definitely, as you speak about it, I can definitely envisage that that happening. Yeah.
Okay. No, good. And then the second part to that question, my question then was, how, like, what advice do you have for women? And I perhaps, what is there any specific work that you're doing to really help other women, or other Black and ethnic minority professionals kind of embrace their own leadership?
Yeah, well, look, I think when I think about success in careers and success in my career, I really had to try and boil it down, right? Because I get asked the question a lot, and it's something that you constantly want to be building leadership and building a point of view, and that's what I did, because it was a dialogue that I was being entertained in all the time, and still am. And when I think about the success that you want, that most people want in their careers, whatever your version of success is, right? But when I think that there are some common threads that I think are quite useful. And all of those common threads also play to leadership. They're all good in aspects of leadership. And maybe that's something that I can share with your audience today. So you already mentioned it. I am the founder and the CEO of Fully Bossed. Sounds weird to say that at the moment. But Fully Bossed was born for this exact reason. It was born because I saw that I was being asked so many questions about how I navigated my career, how I got to positions in my career when I got to them, and so many other questions, how I was successful in my career, again, however you define your success.
Yeah.
And I realized, with all the things that I told you before, in terms of, it is attainable, you can do it, wanted to be inspiration, wanted to be hope for others, particularly people who look like me. This was really calling me to do something. So I have put a lot of effort into ultimately building a set of a framework, and also a point of view around what actually we think it takes to be successful in your career, and how you can advance in your career using soft skills. And that's the key for me. The technical skills, my ability to help a bank with a Brexit program, or closing down a part of their business, is great, fantastic. Anyone's ability to help anyone with something finance related is fantastic. But actually, the common thread for me that has really helped me in my career and progressing in my career, and of course in that is my leadership, right, of soft skills. And there are 4 things that we look at. So the first is mindset, and it's something that I talk about all the time, and it's so instrumental. How you think can set you free. I always say that the person who believes they can and the person who believes they cannot are both right. If you believe it, it can happen. First and foremost, the first ability to actually change the world is believing you can change the world. And if you do not believe that you will be the first Black president of the USA, then you will not be the first Black president of the USA. Now, we don't want, not saying that that's what you want. But if you don't believe that you can be the managing director or the partner of your organization, then you probably won't be. So you've got to believe it. And you've got to convince yourself that you believe it. You've got to actually believe it. And sometimes that's speaking it out loud. That is taking a risk. That is getting out of your comfort zone. That is getting comfortable, literally being uncomfortable. And the first time you can do that, the first time you can get out of your comfort zone, the next time gets easier. The second time you can get out of your comfort zone, the third time gets easier, and so on and so on and so on. I said to you earlier, I didn't like to speak. I mean, when I say that to people these days, they laugh. I'm like, no, believe me, I hated presenting. Now I love, you know, taking the stage, however many people. I hated it. I feared it. You know, I'd get palpitations. And I try to channel, I dance as well. So I would try to channel going out on stage to perform. And even then I would still, you know, I'd have to like keep my elbows, which is a technique that you're taught, you know, my shoulders, sorry, all the way up to my ears, and like take a deep breath. And, you know, one day I was like, okay, I'm going to need to speak more in my career as I get more senior. Let's fix this. And I didn't do anything. I didn't do, you know, any special courses, any special classes. I just practiced. And I just put my, you know, looked for opportunities to speak, put myself in areas where I wasn't comfortable, you know, and I practiced. I would speak in front of the mirror. I would record myself. I would pace around the room. I would find my groove, find whatever works for me. You know, whether that's managing a pen as you're speaking, or using your hands to get you comfortable, or putting your hands in your pocket, whatever that is. And I'm giving you just one example, right, in terms of speaking, but getting uncomfortable and shifting the focus in your mind to say you can as opposed to you cannot. And honestly, that is number one. Number one. I've been told I was grey haired, that it's too early for this promotion, or it's too early for the manager and director partner promotion. You know, but well done for, you know, great that you're actually in the run-in. You know, if you listen to that, of course, it's probably too early, no problem. But I still have to believe it's possible, right? I still have to believe it's attainable. And if I didn't, you know, maybe everything could have, you know, been different. So mindset for me is just number one.
Yeah.
Believe it, go for it, get hungry, get hungrier, take risks, be, you know, persevere, be determined. Even if that goal, that challenge, that vision, sorry, or that goal, it seems so unattainable, believe that you can be the first one to do that, right? Or believe that your child, your future child, or your child right now could be the first one to do that. It's super, super important. So that's number one. The second thing for me was brand. Brand is all about how other people see you. So you may think that you are the best salesperson in the room or in the company, but unless other people believe that, right? Unless you actually are, then you're, you know, unless other people believe that, unless other people are actually buying from you, then you're, you know, you're probably not. And sometimes that means getting really deep and really understanding who you are, why you are. I said it before, wired the way you are, right? It sounds pretty when I say it like that, why you're wired the way you are, like there's something wrong with the wiring, but why you are, why you are the way you are, right? Why is it that I was, you know, I was quite closed off early on in my leadership journey? Well, probably because I felt that success equaled no failure. So I didn't want to show failure, right? Because I was always told to work hard, which has been amazing. I love that. But on the other side, of course, if I'm always told to work hard and to be better than not just myself, but my peers, because I have to work even harder just to be equal. Okay, but I want to be equal, but I want to be great in my own lane, so I have to work even harder, right? So that's probably why I was, you know, how I was, and why now am I being more open and more vulnerable for all the reasons that I told you. But I think when you can really understand who you are, why you are that way, you will hopefully identify a passion inside of you, right? Something that you enjoy doing. And I think a brand for me is always about building that emotional connection with your audience. And you will build that emotional connection with your audience when they believe that you are authentic with that brand. It could be something, brand, you know, it doesn't have to be like you're the perfect person. Brand could be you just don't like people who waste your time, right? That's it. You're authentic with it. You say it how it is, whatever. Like, there may be a group of people who love that, right? Simon Cowell, for those people in the UK, love him or hate him, right? But very, very clear on who he is and why. You know, and there's many things that I have realized that I absolutely am drawn to in terms of a brand, because I feel that they know me. They know me, they know what I need. You know, so even to the point now, for example, as a mother, I remember looking when I was pregnant for any tool to help automate like any process that was manual wherever I could, right? So for example, and obviously wasn't something that I used at the beginning because I was breastfeeding, but after breastfeeding, the baby needs to actually eat solid food. So there is a company who I feel absolutely understands my need, my desire to not waste any time. And with a click of one single button, you can go from, I'm just marketing this company out, but you can go from a sweet potato, a hard sweet potato, to a mushed sweet potato. So it's cooked, right? One button.
Yeah.
Hi, they know me, right? And the same company, when you do need to put milk inside of a bottle, you can go from milk in a bottle, one button.
Yeah.
Hi. So what does it do? It means that I look out for this brand. It means that come out with a product, I believe that they're probably doing something that's going to target me, because they have gone through the effort of trying to understand what are my issues, what is my lived experience. And that's what you're doing when you're building a brand, right? So in your career, you should be trying to build a brand. And, you know, if you're trying to tell me that you want to be promoted, what is it that you're going to be promoted for? What is your brand, right? My brand was restructuring, but business restructuring. And in particular, at the time I was promoted, Brexit featured a large part of my brand. That's what you would come to me for. You knew what you were going to get. Remember when I said, you know, my diary was so busy, I was always being, you know, we were the gateway to anything related. So I think it's really important, really key to understand your brand, understand what you are there to offer, understand what value add you are going to give, whether that is a product, whether that is a service, whether that is, you know, doing more than just the you know, in the context of consulting, doing more than just working on the project, but also forming an opinion, giving more of an opinion. Okay, that's why I'm going to remember Mary's name around the table, right? Mary's the one who, okay, I have never worked with her, but isn't she the one that does X? Isn't she the one that always comes to the meetings with X, always prepared, or whatever that thing is? Build, develop a brand, be rememberable for the right reasons. And I think when that brand is based on your deep understanding of your market, of your industry, of your client, of your project, understanding what you need to be doing before you're told, right? And again, if I go back to the Brexit example, you know, we knew that we needed to be the people who gave our clients information that they couldn't read anywhere else, right? That could be part of the brand, or just build and market intel in terms of what other people should be doing. So many things that we were doing with the capability, it was just, you know, this brand in the making. And that is, I think, a large part of what you should be trying to do when you're, you know, within that career.
Yeah.
The third thing for me, there are two more. So the third thing for me is story. So the ability for you to communicate all of this, communicate your brand, right? Communicate what it is that you're there to do, and making sure that there's a clear understanding from whoever is your audience, whether that's clients, consumers, colleagues, friends, whatever, what it is you do, and clarify that with clarity, but also with impact and with, what am I going to say, Mary? Emotion.
Energy, emotion.
Exactly, energy in motion. And that's really important, because that's the energy that's going to make them do something, right? It's going to make them you know, stand up and talk when actually something doesn't sound right that maybe someone has said about you. Or it's the energy that's going to make them buy your product or buy your service. Or it's the energy that's going to make them be an advocate for your product or your service, or communicate your product or your service, or whatever the thing is going to be. And that is a thing that's super important. And also understanding that other people can tell your story, right? It's super important to have advocates who can advocate for you and tell your story, but they can only do that if they know what your story is, right? And again, able to communicate a clear story is give me content, right? If you give me a very clear brand, this is what you've done, boom, 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 boom. This is why it's really impactful. This is why your clients, your consumers, your market love it. You can create a really interesting story. And when you have somebody who can actually speak your story for you, can stop the meeting and say, no, hold on a minute, or can make sure that they're in the meeting to speak on your behalf when they were never invited, that's a story in itself. The fact that you got yourself invited to a meeting just to speak on about me when you were never invited to the meeting speaks for itself. That happened to me. Little did I know, but I realized how powerful that was, and the ability to have a visible and a loud advocate is really important. But they can only do that if you've got a clear story. So that's really important. And the last thing for me is orchestration. So the orchestration is really basically getting stuff done, the ability to orchestrate the hell out of anything. And I think about like the orchestrator of like 100-person band, that person who was standing there, the conductor, right, standing there, and they're getting everyone to kind of sing and hymn, sing, I guess, or play the music in the same tone and get it all to sound amazingly well and seamless together. That's a big task. It looks really easy, just wanding that I'm going to call it, but that's a really big deal, right? And to get people, I always say to people, did you tell me to do it? They'll say, I sent you an email. Okay, you sent the email, but was it clear what I needed to do? Was it clear? And therefore, is it clear what other people think that they need to do? Is there a clear ask? Is there a clear action? Right? You may be great telling the story, but have you missed the vital bit of the story? Where's the question? What's the thing that you want someone to do? What's the action? But it's more than just getting people to do stuff. Orchestrating is getting them to do things and them wanting to do it. And this is where the next generation leadership pieces come in, right? This is where leadership comes in, the ability to orchestrate, the ability to get things done, the ability to get your teams to get things done, the ability to give your team space so that they can actually forge their own path. So you say, hey, the goal is that we complete these 3 objectives. Sit back, let them do it. And that's for me, that's leadership. Now, part of orchestration is I'm going to sit back, let you do it in your way, but here are some tools and some techniques and some things that you can consider. And this is where also for me, diversity, inclusion all come into your ability to orchestrate, your ability to work with other people, your ability to make things happen. Got an amazing brand. You can work on a brand with an audience, with a strategy team on your own, through doing lots of research. You work on your story again with lots of different specialists, and again, a lot of your input is going to be in creating that story. Orchestration then blows out your ability to work with many different people, many different teams, many different organizations, even thinking about people who you've never actually worked with before, thinking about unlikely players in your ecosystem, competitors, working with people who you've just never even thought about working with, but actually maybe you can outsource something to somebody else, right? Maybe you just need to get the task done. Doesn't mean you need to get the task done. You need to make it happen. That's the really big distinction. And that is something that, all of those things are things that I have had to consider in my journey. So yeah, those are the 4 things I say for people in terms of thinking about their career journey, but also their leadership journey, because I think leadership focuses on each one of those things. But to summarize, mindset, so how you think, is brand, how others see you, it's story, storytelling, communicating your brand and communicating what it is that you stand for. And then it's orchestration, getting things done effectively.
Oh, okay. That was a masterclass, pretty much. I think
well, that is what we're going to be doing at Fully Boss. Look out for the launch.
Hey. So I think that's literally like one entire lesson. It started as one question. It was a full lesson. We can literally cut this out and just use it for stuff. And I think that's excellent. And I know we've spent so much time. It's been such a fantastic conversation. I'm really thankful for your time and really looking forward to all of the things that, all of the new things that are coming down the pipeline, all of the new releases, Bossed Up, and all of the various initiatives, and everything that's going on with you, your family, everything. Just, I know I'm really excited for you and the future. So, yeah, I think that's just a great to kind of end the conversation. We've discussed perhaps having an encore, having another conversation later on when things, when a lot of this good stuff has kind of settled in. We'll definitely working through bringing you back again for a third time's the charm.
Let's do it.
But no, just thank you for just always being so open, so willing, and just available whenever I've called. So thank you so much. Appreciate all of the time, and yeah, it's been
no worries.
So there you have it, guys. Another episode of our Intersectional Leadership series. I mean, this one, I think you would agree, was a masterclass. Just so many things we talked about leadership itself, and just this idea of, impactful leadership, this leadership of the new generation, that is formed on vulnerability and openness. Is one of the things we spend time about. Ollie really went into in quite a bit of detail, just, her journey, and in particular, the step change that she had to make from just being an individual contributor to the teams that she was working in, and then to moving from there to a point where she was really thinking about how to add value actively in a very visible way. And I think that was quite good. And we talked a lot about visibility, about thought leadership, and having a point of view was always her thing. It's not enough to just be there and execute on what people tell you to do, but have a point of view, which is now your contribution to the discourse, being a really key tenet for how she grew into that leadership. But also talking about some of the challenges in terms of when people challenge, her confidence and her perception of herself, and some of the things that she relied on to get back to a place where she was feeling a lot more confident and in the value that she was bringing to the table and what she was delivering to her firm, her clients, her team. And then she wrapped up some of the conversation with these 4 pieces, right? For, feeling more capable, or should I say building your leadership capability, is really around, first of all, your mindset. If you can't believe that you can do it, then you just wouldn't. So believing that you can do it is obviously the first thing. 2 is, having an authentic brand, understanding the perception that other people have of you, and making sure you grasp it and you shape it in a way that is helpful for you and helps you succeed in the space that you are in. And then the third thing was around storytelling, knowing your story. And we've talked about that on this platform multiple times, knowing the story you want to tell, advocating for yourself, and also telling stories to people who can advocate for you when you're not in the room. Very, very important. So being able to communicate that brand through storytelling. And the 4th thing was around orchestration. And really the way I understood that was really a bias for execution. So being someone who has execution muscles, where you can, this frankly, the ability to get things done, and fundamentally that's where it starts, right? That's where it starts, is if you can get things done, through getting things done in a really fantastic, high highly engaging and valuable way, that helps you build your brand. And that's what you can then build your platform, your very visible platform on. But it all starts with that performance, the ability to execute. So just such a masterclass. And I'm excited for all of the things that Ollie is working on, just how passionate she is around developing career professionals, and also serving, you know, underrepresented communities. We definitely share that passion in common. It's been really great having this conversation. I feel this is one that you're going to have to, you know, press repeat. You're going to have to listen to it, press repeat, go back again, because I think there were so many gems hidden in so many stories here, there, and everywhere. And so I've tried to synthesize some things for you, but I know there's so much more you need to uncover. So definitely like, share, subscribe, comment below. You know, frenemies, friends, family, you know, tell whoever to tell whoever about this story. This is how we all develop and grow together. So I'm really, really excited. We have more to come in this series, so stay tuned. Tell someone, bring someone in. You can definitely be the bridge between where somebody is now and where they could possibly go to. So you are a bridge, you're a connector, and I believe you can do this, you know, just as we are trying to as well. So thank you guys for always tuning in, for always being here, for always being present, for always showing up. You definitely encourage me to continue to show up as well. Really, really excited. And so I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.